Recording. Okay, so good morning and thank you to everyone who showed up, both live and who may listen to this on the replay as well. This morning, Jason and I are going to be talking about sitting in the power, what the power is, as well as communication with our guides and what that looks like for us as well. We had some requests to talk about guides, so that was kind of an add-in. So we're really happy to answer any questions you have. So feel free to move down into the chat box below and to type in anything that you're wanting to know about guides or your relationship with them, as well as anything that may else come up, because we're open to this being more of a Q&A as well. We also wanted to talk about spiritual practice and what you can do for yourself to build your own relationship with the power, as well as building your own relationship with your guides too. So I'm going to pass it over to Jason, and he's going to share a little bit about what the power is and why you need it in mediumship.
Right. Okay. So here we go. What is the power? Right. That's a good question. Right. And when you think about it, you think about the power. We always say it in mediumship: go and sit in the power, and then it's good for your mediumship, right? But what it is, it's time out for yourself to actually plug yourself in to recharge yourself, so that your frequency can get higher, so that you can connect to spirit easier. And most of us, when we're learning mediumship, we're like, I was too busy. I didn't have a chance to sit in the power. I'll do it next week. I didn't have the privilege of having practice circles back in my day. So the only thing I could do was sit in the power. So I sat in the power almost every day for a year. I mean, I probably miss a few days, but I used to do it in 21-day stints. So I'll go, right, I've got to do 21 days. And I'll be counting 21 days. And once I've done 21, I say, yes, okay, I can take a day off. And I'll do it another 21 days. And in that way, I managed to get it into a practice of building up my frequency and power, so that I could understand the spirit world a lot easier. So it's like when you will probably be getting very, funny information, you think, oh, don't quite understand it. When you've been sitting in the power a lot, you get the information and you just know it. You just, it's full on, it, you've got connection with spirit and you can feel it, and it's very strong. And even when you have to work in circumstances where the energy, like if you're doing a demonstration and the energy is pretty flat in the hall, then your power is strong enough to raise the energy in a hall. So there's been many situations where I've been like that, where I've had to raise the energy so that we could have a good demonstration. And that's what the power can do. But the power is, if you break it down, you have personal power, right? Do you believe in yourself, right? If you believe in yourself, that's a power in itself, right? If you believe in you, that ignites something like, yes, I believe in me, I can do this. Then that's the empowerment. Another empowerment is like people say, let go of the ego, and you do let go of the ego quite a lot, but you need the ego a little bit. A part of it you need. I will show them what I can do. Now, okay, that's ego. I will show them I can do this. That's the ego, but it's a positive side to it, and it's also got a power to it. When you get angry and you say, that's it, I've had enough, and now you're going to listen to me, that's a power in itself as well. And sometimes we say, yeah, that could be negative, but actually the power of you and what you believe in, that is a power in itself. So that's one part of the power. Sitting in the power is sitting in the power, expanding your light, but also expanding your light to connect to the spirit world, right? And I don't mean with communication, it's just raising your light into the spirit world and connecting and just sitting, not for communication, but to so that the spirit world can work on you. And that's the empowerment as I see it. But the empowerment of your soul is one part of it. The empowerment of reaching out to the divine is another part of it. And all these parts, when you put them together, you have the power of you, the power of your soul, the power of the spirit world, and the power of God. You put it all together and you've got an immense amount of energy that is possible to connect to spirit, raise any frequency, and it's pretty amazing what happens to your mediumship when you do it regularly. So I think that explains it, Nicole.
Yes, it does. So thank you for that elaboration. That's perfect. So what really is a medium? So a medium is someone that can raise their frequency up, and when the spirit world can raise their frequency down a little bit. Some people talk about it going out and then blending in. So it doesn't really matter if it's up or down, but that's where the word medium came from, is that we meet in the medium, in the middle as well. So sitting in the power is different than sitting in a meditation. When you sit quietly in meditation, you go inward, you go quiet, this is more deep and quiet for yourself. It's about mindfulness. It's about calming your energy and bringing you down, into that quiet space. When we do sitting in the power, like Jason said, we're bringing our energy up, and we do this all with intention. Maybe as well as kind of like a visualization, to be able to seeing ourselves growing our light bigger and bigger until it starts to expand in the room. Both of us have meditations you can do from us, either on some on SoundCloud. Jason has lots on YouTube, so we're happy to share these type of meditations. And this really is key to developing your relationship, not only with your personal power, but to develop it with your guides, which is what I think a lot of you are interested in. How do I hear that communication from them as well? There was a question that popped up when Jason was talking, so I'm just going to look at it. So how do I know the difference of your guides that come in, please? Okay, so that's a really good question. So when our guides are coming in and we're sitting in the power, we have multiple guides. They all come for different reasons, and they all do different things as well. So maybe one guide would be here to help me with, writing. Another guide would be here to help me with my mediumship. Maybe I have 5 guides to help me with my mediumship or something like that. And it's about learning to sit quietly in that power, calling them in and asking them to gather around so that I could feel the different energies of them. So if you think about it as if I were to stand here with my eyes closed and one person came up and stood next to me, I would, you can feel their energy a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, I feel that maybe, I have a guy standing next to me because it feels more like male energy, or I can hear them breathing, or they just feel like they're maybe really tall or this or that. That's similar what we're doing when we're feeling into the energy of our guides as well. Also, I may have another energy standing over on my left side that feels soft or faint or dainty, and that would be a different guide that would be coming in. And if you think about it, if I had my eyes closed and several people walked up around me, I would be able to feel the energy of different people. Just kind of like how when your friend walked in a room, or someone you're really close to walked into your room, you would be able to know that that was them when they entered, just by feeling their energy as well. Also, when we're developing this relationship with our guides, it's all about sitting quietly and opening, right? So we learn to open our senses when we sit in this power. For myself, I ask, this is my time now to be able to open up my hearing. And I just say this by intention, to open up feeling, seeing, tasting, smelling, knowing. And as that energy expands and opens in the room, everything starts to heighten. So my sensitivity gathers a little bit more. Jason, you're actually the one that taught me how to communicate with my guides, as well as, build that relationship with guides. And I know this is something that you're really passionate about and you teach a lot of in Germany. And did you want to share a little bit about how people can get in touch with them as well?
Yeah, sure. I love anything to do with guides, anything to do with the spirit world, and I love being able to teach to people. Before I tell you about that part, what Nicole mentioned about sitting in the power and opening up to your hearing, or sitting in the power and opening up to seeing more, your clairvoyance, or opening up to something else, and it's just being able to do it. And the one thing I wanted to develop was being able to hear spirit. So what I did is I sat and I just put I imagined my ears getting really big, like Dumbo, and I just put them in the spirit world. And I imagined like suddenly them becoming like radars or satellites, or just sitting in the power and just listening to spirit very gently. And in that way, I started to develop more of the hearing what spirit had to say. And there's different things that I've also managed to do to develop the other things, but I did it just by all in the power. Like, what did I want to develop? How did I want to develop it? And then imagining that part being a part of the spirit world as well. And my guides with the intention would work with me on that. So that's something that I did. And I also did lots of different activations as well, that sort of thing, which I thought was really good to do. But when what I like about connecting to your guides and getting to know them, it's like you can get to know them in meditations, but when you get to know them in meditation, it feels just so far away, and you're like, was that in my imagination, or was that my guide? But it's when you actually get them to stand behind you, and you can feel them standing behind you, and you get them to give you a healing, and you can feel their hands on your shoulders, then you feel them really close, and you're like, okay, now I can really feel them. And then you can open up to the fact that, what are they wearing? How do they feel? Does it feel like a man? Does it feel like a woman? How does this energy feel that's coming into me? And that's the thing, how you can develop more that contact with your guides. And when you think about it, they've given up their time, especially for your spiritual development. Your head guide, the guide that is with you when you were born, that's the one that decided to be with you your whole lifetime. They'll never go away. They'll always be there when you need them. And it's like, it's for your spiritual growth. So I find whenever I do guides classes, they can't wait to come forward and let their people know that they are there to support them. It's so amazing. And every time I do a guides class or a trance class to bring the guides through, they get as excited as the people that are the students that are sitting there. So it's quite a really lovely thing to do. And you can experience them when you go into journeying, meditation, when you can feel them physically. I sometimes ask the guides to stand in different places around the room so that you can feel them. And you're like, okay, how do they feel? How do they see? And experiment with them. And I think that's the main thing that we don't think about, that like the guides love to experiment as well. Like, so when we're like, oh, shall we try this? They like to try it as well. So whenever we do trance and overshadowing, it's wonderful to be able to see, like, in the energy of someone's face, that there'll be like an energy, and you could probably just almost see that the face changes and that the guide's face comes through. And that's quite amazing to see in the energy that the face changes. We've had that happen quite a lot in the courses, haven't we, Nicole?
Well, yeah, and we have some interesting photographs too over time as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got some interesting photographs, and I've put up some interesting photographs where overshadowing has taken place when I've been demonstrating. But there's I know some people are like, oh, well, that's one-off chance. But Nicole's got photos of me demonstrating in Canada and did the same thing, right, Nicole? The overshadowing.
And the blurry face. Yeah.
They're all blurry, yeah. And it just shows you the possibility of spirit, and it shows you what is possible. Now, how do you know the difference between guides when they come in? It's like, I mean, I've got guides, like if my First Nations guide comes in, now that feels totally different than my other guides. Like, I'll feel like an energy bolt of energy, and it's like very strong earth, strong energy, and then I know it's him, and I normally feel him on this side. And when my guide comes in for healing, Dr. John, he'll come in on this side, and he feels quite serious, and he gets serious, and he feels serious, but the energy of him feels very precise and feels technical, and it feels like a very light energy, but still masculine, because he never takes no for an answer. Then whenever my other guide comes in, Safia, he's very light. He's so light, it's like a feeling that in between feminine and masculine, even, but because the feeling is so light. And I've got my female guides, and they feel obviously very feminine. So it's just getting to know, how do they feel when they're standing in your aura or around you, and when they're blending with you. And it's amazing to experiment with that. And yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you talked a lot about that and just about how that relationship develops. I know for myself, a lot of my mediumship development into becoming, the medium that I'm today or whatever, as well as communicating with my guides, I've done a lot of that work with my eyes closed or even blindfolded as well. Something our pioneers did in the 1800s and early 1900s when they were developing their mediumship is that they believed in sitting in the dark. Teachers, if they expressed interest in developing their mediumship, they would come and sit in a room in the pitch black, and they would sit there for 1 to 2 hours once a week. And they would do this as a group. And all they would be doing is learning to feel the power and learning to feel the energy of their guides around them. So at this point too, when people ask me, I really want to develop my mediumship, I go, do you want to develop your mediumship to learn how to communicate for other people, or is this more for self? Like, is this that you want to be able to communicate for yourself, like to your own guides? Because I'm now learning that those two things are quite different. So if people on this call are wanting to learn how to have, a personal relationship with their guides and their spirit team or their loved ones, a great way to start with this would be to sit in the dark. I usually say pitch black. And sit quietly, set the intention for sitting in the power, expanding your energy, as well as having a meeting with your guides. Because once you start to develop that relationship with them, it's like any other relationship that you have, a friendship, a family member. It takes time to develop. It takes time to get to know, what they're here for you specifically. And sometimes, being human, we want to rush this development. We want to, name them really quick. We want to say, oh, this is exactly who they are, and and then we want to go to a medium so that they can validate for us. And I'm just saying this because I've done this myself. But it's interesting just how over time, if you take the time to develop this relationship, it can actually, very much transform your life and very much influence who you are as a person. When I started to work with my painting guides, my art guides, at first when I started to paint, it was very technical. I wanted to learn how to do things very properly. I wanted to, paint animals and stuff like that. But when I started to introduce my guides for painting, all of a sudden my work became very abstract. It became, I was almost doing this more in a trance state, or I felt like, things would kind of go from A to Z. And it's all about trusting them to, put their hands over your hands or to work in close capacity with you. And it very much is around taking that time for yourself in that solitude and in quiet to be able to do that. Some people as well do it in writing as well. Jason, did you want to talk a little bit about channeled writing? Or we call it channeled writing. I think you guys would call it more automatic writing, about how you can develop your relationship with guides.
Yeah, we don't do channeling over here. We do either inspired speaking or trance speaking. And you guys would probably call it channeling or channeled writing or stuff like that. So it's just terminology, right? At the end of the day, it's connecting to spirit and letting come through what's coming through. When you bring spirit really close, like your guide really, really close, and you want to develop like writing, you just let them come right on in, feel them, their energy moving into your energy, their hands coming over your hands, and then just feel the pen in your hand, and then just close your eyes and connect with them and let them bring the awareness of what needs to be written. And the best way to do it, whether you're doing it with writing or you're doing it with painting, is just to be in that state of mind. I don't really want to write. I don't really care. I'll just see what happens. I don't really want to paint. I'll just see what happens. And then in that relaxed state, it's like whatever comes through at that moment is not your mind, you see? And that's where we get, in the beginning, we get mixed up. We're like, is it my mind or is it spirit mind? I actually got spirit to move my hands, and they move me quite a lot. And I'll say, right, okay, I'll put my hand here and I don't want my hand to move. And then suddenly my hand moves. So it just shows you that then spirit moves your hands. So it's little tests that you can do when you're sitting in the power, is like, okay, if spirit's moving my hand, right, I'll stop my hand now and then see if spirit can take it over. And you'll see that spirit can take it over. And it's just experimenting with spirit. And it's the same with writing. If you've got it in your hand and you say, okay, I want to write, I want to get this information, you'll be like thinking, perhaps I got it through my mind. But if you're in that sort of passive state and you put the pen on the paper and you're sitting there relaxed from, I really don't mind if anything comes through. We'll just see what spirit wants to do. And in that relaxed state, then you may suddenly get bombarded with energy and words, and you'll just start. And I just say, in the beginning, okay, it may be some percentage might be your own mind, but a lot of the percentage can be of spirit if you just go with everything you get. And practice makes perfect. So you may start off and you might help, and you might find, oh, my mind's coming in because I need to put a full stop there. And you just say, okay, let go of mind, go back, and then just let spirit write again. And you keep practicing, and eventually you'll get to a point where spirit can write, and you won't even be thinking. Like, it bypasses your thinking. So you're like, the words are coming on paper too quickly for your thinking to even comprehend what's going on paper. And when you read it back afterwards, it's amazing. You read it back after and say, wow, that's amazing. That doesn't sound like me at all. Mm-hmm. And it's the same when you're moving into trance speaking with your guides. I always sit in, I always say, well, I don't feel like speaking tonight. We'll see what my guides want to do. And then what happens is the guides speak. I think there was one time I was in Canada and I was doing a workshop. I don't think my guide's going to speak. He's only going to come in and do overshadowing. And Nicole said, yeah, that's fine, Jason. And then little did I know they were all rooting my guide on to speak. So what did he do? He came in and spoke to them all and shared wisdom, and I was unaware of it. And then I come back and they all looked at me and said, yeah, it wasn't just overshadowing. Your guide spoke. And that's where you can start to see what is your mental mind and what is spirit mind. And I find when the guides come in really, really close, it feels to me like your brain goes numb. So it's like that almost a fuzzy sort of, like, not pins and needles, but like a fuzzy sort of feeling where you feel that your brain is just phasing out, and then whatever comes through then is, for me, just, that's all the guide. I see Renee's working on doing trance communication. What can I do? I'm working to developing a deeper relationship with my guides. Is this the time to do so? I believe, like, with guides, and I know that Nicole would agree with me. Like, I teach beginners to get in contact with their guides, because the first contact they ever make when they're in a class with me is with their guides, because then you can get the feeling of what is the spirit, what is spirit trying to say, and how does it feel. So, and it's also very, very, very secure when you make a contact with your guide and you're feeling like, oh wow, I feel like now warmth in between my shoulder blades. Then whenever that guide connects, there's going to be warmth in between your shoulder blades. When I've got another guide working with me, I feel one of them pulling on my ear. All right, okay, that one's the one that's Dr. John. I might feel another one with the hands on his shoulders. Say, okay, that's Sophia. So it's just knowing what are the calling cards, and the calling cards, I mean, like, what are they? What are their little signature signs that it's that guide? And some of them I'll go cold, some of them I go hot, and it's just knowing what is the difference. So I believe that to develop your communication with your guides, you don't need to wait until you've been doing mediumship for a long time. You can develop that now, and you do it by asking them, when you connect with them, let me feel something. Some of them will brush your hair and you'll be, okay, that's the sign that this guide is with me. And it's just that stepping stone, because when you get to contact with spirit, you're like, how does this spirit feel to me? And how do my hands feel when I'm connecting to this spirit? Do they feel big? Do they feel small? And it's with your guide as well. You might feel, how big are my feet when I'm connecting to this guide? How does it feel? And I know this sounds very mental, but it's in the beginning, it's like, that's how you start. It's like, okay, oh, I feel quite large feet. Oh, and I see maybe some indigenous clothes or indigenous shoes. And in that way, okay, I know who I'm connecting with. Like Dr. John has got his polished shoes, so I just like, okay, that's Dr. John. But whenever I connect to Oliver, he's got polished shoes, but he's obviously a little bit more bigger than Dr. John, because Dr. John is very skinny. And in that way, and it's just how you feel when you connect, and it's learning to connect in that way, and to learn those little signs that your guides are letting you know. And it's amazing. Whenever you ask them to do something, you say, will you please let me feel that you're there? They let you feel that they're there. And it's only the conscious mind. And I love playing with guides in the conscious mind, because I'd be like, okay, let's make the guide, let's play with the clairvoyance. Let's let our guide take over the clairvoyance. And so your guide will start giving you pictures and things. And then they'll say, okay, now try and use your mental mind to push those pictures out the way, and then give your guide permission to take over your clairvoyance again. And in that way, you play with them, but then you know what is coming from spirit and what is coming from your own mind. And I love doing that with beginners, because it just sorts out that you can trust everything you can get. And whether you're doing inspired writing, whether you're doing the painting, it's just releasing and trusting that everything that's happening at the moment you're connected to your guide is your guide. And then afterwards, if you want to sit and nitpick over, oh, that might have been 5% my own mind, well, you've got to celebrate the 95% that wasn't. Because, that's the thing. We tend to go, oh, I think that part was my own mind, but what about the rest of it? How does it look? How does it sign? What is the style of the writing? Has it changed? So yeah, it's amazing. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about it. So I'm going to pass you on to Nicole now.
Oh, we've got another question. So let me just read that. That's a great idea and sounds fun. But when could it be another spirit versus your guide? Okay, so you meaning like a loved one in spirit versus connecting with a spirit guide. So is that technically what you mean? I'll just talk a bit about that. So every spirit has a little bit of a different frequency or an energy. Because I learned how to communicate with loved ones in spirit first. How that happens for me is, again, simply intention. I want to connect with loved ones in spirit. For me, I feel them come around me. It's a very dense energy. It's because it's like they used to live here on, the earth plane. So it's like they come in at a very dense field. Sometimes it feels like they're literally physically standing with me or beside me. For me, when I set the intention to connect with spirit guides, either my spirit guides or even, with clients or whatever, or students, they show up in front of me. And it's a very different frequency. And, mediumship is working with the nervous system and learning to work with your sensitivity. So, a gifted medium really is someone who's gifted with sensitivity or gifted with, being able to pick up on fine energy. So you can think of like dogs or cats, of how they can pick up energy very quickly. That's exactly what you're training yourself to do as a medium. So, in this type of development, you're learning how to fine tune what is a spirit guide's energy, what is a loved one's in spirit energy, or, what is my energy, what is my soul, what is my high power, my higher self bringing through for me as well. So it is literally just that, just being able to tune in. And for me, they stand around different places. Grandfathers stand behind me, parents stand beside me, brothers, sisters stand, right here, friends around here. And then, we get into guides, and usually they stand around the person as well. So we've just developed a relationship, my team and I, of like how we could do this so how I can remember. Because a lot of mediumship development, once you get through the sensitivity pieces, okay, so now I'm learning a new language, the language of spirit. And this is my personal language. It's different for anybody else, on this call or in this room or even on this, this world. It's how does spirit communicate with you specifically based on you know, how your mind works, how your life experience is, and how you can comprehend everything that's going on as well. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, I think you just maybe even wrote a little bit more. So it's about playing and practice. Yes, it's all practice. I remember I have this memory of me when I was 19 years old and I was reading a book on spirit guides, and they told me to draw their name in the air. And I thought that was really cool. So I had spirit take my hand and lift it up, and I watched as the letters drew in front of me. And that, you know, it's simply, like Jason said, it's having fun with it and playing with it and seeing how they want to express themselves through. So another thing about guides is that they're here to guide us. They're not here to tell us what to do. So they're simply just standing there waiting for us to tune into them, to develop this relationship with them, to trust them, so that they could positively influence our life. But at the end of the day, we always have free will as well. We don't have to listen to them, but, you know, remember, they do have like a bigger picture of what's going on. And again, part of developing your mediumship is also developing your spirituality and your relationship with spirit. So it's about learning to become in the flow and in synchronicity with that higher power, and how you can maybe hand your life over to like God's plan or the bigger plan or vision. Jason, do you want to talk a bit about the difference of the soul as well as spirit guides, and how we can tune into our soul and what that does for ourselves versus, you know, communicating with guides and getting our guides to influence us?
Okay. Yeah. So when you connect to your guides, I mean, they can bring great wisdom. They can bring great guidance. But when you connect to your soul, which is the infinite you, it's the you that never dies, it's the you that will continue, the indestructible you, and like, we protect it like it's really, because it is our sensitivity. And when you get into your soul, it's beautiful and it's got a lovely light and it's very, very sensitive. But what we do is we protect it. And so we protect it with, like, no, we build these walls around us so nobody can hurt us. We don't want them to come in. But really, our sensitivity is infinite. It's indestructible. That part of us, that inner part of us, is like, it's immense. It's amazing. And that amazing wisdom that's within inside of us, we can speak from that as well. So when we connect to our soul, when we connect to that soul's light, and we take the time to do it, whether you're in a moment, you know, sitting in the power, or you're just sitting for contemplation, you can feel that the power of your soul is far stronger than anything that's going on in your body. It's also far stronger than anything that's going on in your life. And when you connect to it, it's like there's an infinite wisdom there to be discovered. Now, whenever we say, okay, let's do channeling from the guide, or let's do, you know, inspired speaking from the guide, but inspired speaking from the soul, you got to remember that is spirit in itself. It's like, how many times have you read a book and you thought, I know this wisdom, it just resonates with me, or I've heard this somewhere before, and then you get goosebumps and think, oh wow, this must be the truth, right? Because if I was going to teach people something about mediumship, one of the most important things I like to teach them is about the soul, because the soul it's got everything you need. Like, we think that mediumship works with our head, and we think, like, if I do these techniques, it will happen, but actually your soul does it naturally. So, you know, our mind likes to have something to do. Our mind thinks, well, if I just get my energy up and I put it over there and I get over here and I make contact, then it will work. But your soul just needs to go, and it's connected, because your soul's light is connected to everything. It's connected to the universe. Everything in the universe is energy. I mean, quantum physics has explained that. And your soul is like also a part of that infinite energy. So that soul life force within inside of you is connected to everything. So when you connect to spirit, you do not need to move. Spirit is already there. It's only tricking your mind into thinking that it's done something to move into a different frequency so that it can do it. But your soul has that frequency. So the power of the soul, when you expand it, it ebbs out the mind, it ebbs out the ego. And when it does that, it leaves room for the immense possibilities. And I know I've had many close scaves with death, and many times I've got away luckily. But the one thing I've always been aware of is the infinite soul and the feeling inside, and all the clear knowing comes deep from within side of your own soul. And when that connects to spirit, you just know stuff. And that's that light within you can bring immense healing for your own body if you stay in resonance with it. And when people are searching for enlightenment, they'll search it through, opening up the chakras, opening up this, doing that, doing perhaps some exercises, meditations, all that sort of thing. But when you connect to your own soul, you'll find that you get to a pretty enlightenment space when you connect with that side of you within. And it's like the silent secret within. There was a story that I heard somewhere where God said, where can I hide the secret about life, the universe, and everything? Hide it within human beings, because they'll never look there. And it's like, yeah, but when you do look within and you do feel the soul's essence, it is so rich and so full of wisdom, it can speak. So if you ask your soul to speak to you and say, you are an infinite being, and you close your eyes and you listen to your soul speaking, you are an infinite being. It shows you that your soul can speak without a mouth. You can hear without ears. When you close your eyes and look at your soul, you'll be like, oh, I can see an energy inside of myself without eyes. So there is an essence inside of you that has talent. So like the clairvoyance and the clairsentience is all connected to that soul's power. And it's like your soul already knows how to do this. It's just tricking your mind into just finding out that your soul can already do this. Like, your mind saying, I don't know if I can do this because it's all difficult to do all these exercises. But when you listen to your soul already knows. And I know some people say, some mediums are born and some mediums are made. I believe that everyone has a possibility to connect to spirit because everyone's got a soul. And everyone's got a possibility to connect to spirit because everyone has the same chakra system. Why would we all have a third eye if we couldn't see? Why would we all have like all these chakras that can connect to spirit in different ways? Because it wouldn't be needed if there was only the select few, right? So I think that's the secret, and I think that's what it is. The secret is you have all the abilities and faculties inside of your own soul, inside of your own spirit, and the whole wisdom from the soul. When someone speaks from the soul like this, it has an effect. But when you're speaking from your guide, it also has an effect because you're speaking from another guidance, another soul, And a lot of people, they don't give them their own soul enough energy or enough credit. They'll say, my guide gave me all of this. But don't forget to listen to the inner speaking, the inner silence of your own soul, because there is a lot of wisdom in there. Anyone that's a good psychic, wow, that soul is doing its work there. It's bringing the power of the soul to do psychic work. And anyone that's good with their intuitive work, the soul can do it in that way. But when you connect to spirit and you connect to your guide, it's a different energy. It's normally coming from behind. You can feel the energy coming in, and it feels different. It feels electric. And we listen a lot to our guides, don't we, Nicole?
Oh yeah, we sure do. We talk to them quite a bit, actually. So I put up a post, I think a couple weeks ago, that had a lot of interaction, which was about a picture of guides, and then they had guides standing behind them and guides standing behind them, and it was like this whole train of guides going all the way around. And it reminded me of how this time when one of my guides came in, and it said that even I having a guide to teach me how to be a guide for you, and And then even that guide has a guide. So it's like at no point is there a stop to somebody else holding space for you and someone else holding space for them. Because remember, the soul is eternal and we never stop learning based on if we are here on this earth or we are on the other side. It's the eternal progression of the soul, right? And so, you know, it's why when we come to earth, we want to do as much, you know, spiritual work or, you know, to work with on ourselves to be able to grow that. So when we, you know, go back to the other side, that we can continue to progress our soul from there as well. Where do our guides come from? You know, so this is an interesting question because this is, again, deep inquiry of, you know, learning and understanding your guide and taking the time to get to know them. I'm just going to read this question here. Would it be possible for you to post that again? Yeah, I can definitely post again. I actually think I should do a painting of it too. But where do our guides come from? So sometimes there are like our friends on the other side. Sometimes we may have had a past life with them in, you know, a lifetime here. We believe in reincarnation that way. Sometimes they've been assigned to you based on what you're doing in this world at the moment. So remember, Jason talked about how the soul has infinite possibilities. When we come into this world, we think we're limited, you know, to maybe our genetics or things that we feel like we get pushed into doing, or our culture and stuff like that. But when you start to develop that relationship with your soul, that's where you realize that there is absolutely no limitations to what you can do, what you can tap into in this lifetime. And I know for Jason and I, since we've been really like amping up this soul power, we've been doing all sorts of things. Like I've been doing writing, painting, piano playing, you know, public speaking, mediumship, you know, it keeps going and going and going. And I know Jason's like that on speed times 100 because that's just his personality and who he is. But it's like, it's like realizing all these untapped talents that you have. So, you know, you connect with your soul and then you invite in that spirit team within that as well. And then it just really, really amps up. And you just find that if you take the time to develop it, that ability is already there, because if we are all oneness in this greater, you know, consciousness, all that information is available to us. The only thing that gets in the way is our mind, thinking that I'm not worthy of this, I'm not good enough, or I can't, right? But we have to take the time to develop that and allow it to become stronger than the limitations of the mind. And I can definitely say that Jason taught me that 100% for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, the subject I'm thinking of is about when people hand too much over to guides and not enough living for themselves. Do you know what I mean, Jason? So it's like, when do people need to tune into their soul more, opposed to being like, oh, I'll let my guides sort that out, or what do my guides say about that? Or it's like learning how to be in union opposed to separate, right? Because a lot, especially during full moons, like which we're having just right now, I just had a huge amp of people wanting private readings. And it's like there's something happens to the earth axis, and it's almost everyone's like, I don't know who I am, I don't know where I'm going, I need help, oh my God, I need clarity, right? So maybe this is a good time to sink deeper into the soul's wisdom of who I am. It's almost like something happens where the mind forgets who you are for a second. So Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about when to utilize your guides, or when to tap more into your soul's wisdom, or even just not to overuse, or what their real purpose is there for? Yeah.
I think, well, what it is, I mean, you hear a lot of people say, you know, I'm going to ask my guides to find me the right parking space. I'm going to ask them to put all the traffic lights on green. Make sure that I get to the front of the queue. Ask my guides to do all this. It's like, and it's just that. So what people don't realize is sometimes it's not always in the capabilities of the hands of your guides to make sure that you get to the front of the queue, right? Sometimes it's just your belief that you're going to get there that makes it happen, right? Guides are there to give spiritual guidance, and they're to guide you within your life in whatever way. So if you're in tune with your feelings and your intuition, and you listen to your guide can move you in the right direction. Your guide can move you to wherever you need to be, and can inspire you to move in the right direction. But the thing is, that's what Nicole said, you have freedom of choice. So your spirit, your soul has freedom of choice. Do I really want to go this way? Do I really want to learn this? Do I want to do something else? And I think that's the thing to remember, because your power, you can give up your power by saying, I'll just leave it to spirit. A lot of people say, oh, spirit's telling me this, and spirit's saying I've got to do this. And when they're talking about spirit, they're talking about their guides, they're talking about guidance, they're talking about this. What if your soul was telling you that? You know, did you take the time to feel into where the information's coming from, you see? Because it's an intuitive thing that we get, right? Now, if you're connected to your guides really, really strongly and you listen to them, they can guide you in any different direction that you can think of. They can guide you into trance. They can guide you into doing the into getting in touch with, like, that beautiful artistic talent that Nicole was talking about, getting into art. But her soul had to realize the infinite possibilities within her own art. So the guide can lead her the way, but the soul needs to absorb what's going on here and say, hey, I've got this, I know this, I can change this, I can make this into something beautiful. And that's what it is, because they can say you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And it's the same with us, right? The guides can take us in the right direction, but we don't have to partake. It just depends what we feel that we want to do. And that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, oh, my guides were telling me. And years ago when I started this, I think it was in 2000 and something, not very much, 2003. And I met this lady, and you could never have an argument with her. She said, and I'd be like, well, you know, she'd say, I think it's like this. And I say, oh, really? Yeah, spirituality is like this. And I say, oh, that's nice. And I'd say, but I've got a different opinion, because I think spirituality is like this. And she'd say, no, my guide's telling me it's like that, so it's like that. And you just can't argue with her. So I'm just like, okay, that's your perception. You know, you feel that your guides are telling you that. And you just can't say, okay, you don't want to hurt the feelings, so you just don't, you know, okay, well, if that's what your guide says, then it must be correct. But obviously I feel something different. And whenever I had a conversation with this lady, it was always the same. And I'll be like, going for it, yeah. And I was thinking, yeah, about healing. We're talking about healing and using the energy. And I just feel that. And she says, no, I always turn the chakras left. Oh, I said, I turn them whatever way it feels. It depends. For me, it's intuition. No, my guide's telling me they've got to be turned to the left. So, right, okay, your guide's telling you. And that's where you got to think, well, your guide can lead you to water, but what are you really feeling? What are you really picking up? And it's like the things that I do now. I mean, I read a lot more. I do a lot of inspired talking in churches and centers in many different places. If it wasn't for my guides leading me to the first book that I read, and they led me there and felt, and I had the book in my hands, but it was up to me to buy it. It was up to me to read it. It was up to me to absorb the spiritual information in that book. And that was the book that actually put me on the path of spirituality and healing, and becoming interested in seeing auras and seeing chakras and seeing energy. Because if I hadn't been brought to that book all those years ago and picked up that book, I wouldn't have walked down that pathway the same way. And so that's what I'm trying to say, is you can follow guidance, and you've got to say guides is the word. So it is guidance. It's not, I'm your personal coach and I'm telling you what you got to do. That's not what it is. So that's where we've got to remember that, yeah, it's okay to say no, because my guide said to me in the beginning, oh, you're going to go on stage and do demonstrations. I go, I'm not doing that. I'm too scared to do that. I'm not doing that. I don't do demonstrations. I do one-to-one sittings. That's what I do. That's nice and comfortable. But they were right. But obviously it took me time to adjust, and my soul time to adjust and get used to the fact that I could do it, right? And that's the thing to remember is, like I said, your guides can lead you to a certain place. but it's your soul that's got to comprehend it, understand it, and take it to the next level. So I hope that explains that, Nicole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that explains quite a bit. And just the natural progression of the soul, as well as our development with our spirit team and the other side. So when do we get ourselves in trouble? When we try and skip steps, control, and get ahead, right? When we try and force things to happen and they're faster, naturally trying to, happen on, the bigger scale. And I like to look at our development in mediumship or spiritual as like a flower unfolding with petals. And it's not something saying, I want to do this now, or I want to da-da-da. It's like, this is when we sit still. This is when we build the power and we ask spirit, where do you want us? How may I serve? And how may you use me, right? Because that's exactly how you get into that synchronicity, that flow of life. I remember reading a book a few years ago. It was a James Van Praagh book on mediumship and stuff like that. I couldn't tell you which one, but he was talking about when life gets difficult versus when we're in the flow and what's happening. And I'll just give like a random example. I'll use myself as an example. The other day I had way too much going on. I was already starting to feel a little bit sick. But because I had commitments, I continued to follow through in everything I was doing because I didn't want to let anyone down. And I actually was getting to that point where it's like, oh my God, now I'm starting to get really tired here, but just one more thing I have to do. And then da-da-da. Even though I was starting to hear the wisdom already for the day, you need to cancel this evening, you need to cancel this evening. I never did because I felt too responsible to be there for somebody else. So what happens is I get a flat tire. I never made it past, about a kilometer past my house. And I realized all day Spirit has been telling me to cancel. And I said, no, I got to do this. And I realized it's like, oh, that was a guidance that I chose to have free will over. But, they're always trying to help you to make things easier. So I could have said, poor me, victim, I got a flat tire. Now I have to fix it. Now I have to wait all evening, we have to do all this and stuff like that. But really, it's like once that happened, all I could say was, thank you for reminding me to slow down. Now can you please help me fix this? So I was stranded. I don't know how to replace a tire, all these things. So I had to get creative. I had to call my husband, to get his friend to pick him up. I had to get him to drop him off. Then we had to realize that we didn't have the proper tools to change the tire. We had to walk to the mechanic store, which happened to be 500 meters away, thank God. Got a new wrench thing. So everything kind of fell into place when I handed it over and said, can you please help us with this, right? It's like, can we have your guidance now of how to make this easier than more difficult so we don't just ditch the car and end up walking home. So that's just a little example of when we start to hear the guidance through the day, and then by the end of the day, we've more complicated it than it needed to be. So for me, my goal is to be living in union with Spirit. When am I going against the natural currents and flows of the guidance that they're trying to give me? When am I making things more difficult, and when am I making things more simple? And remember, we're always in that communication if we like it or not. It's just sometimes we doubt it, or we get caught up in the people pleasing, or wanting to, maybe not let somebody down or let ourselves down. And when are we in resistance, and when are we, being actually pulled and guided to do something? Because I know for many of you, and I say this to almost everybody I know, sometimes we're pulled to places, or to travel to certain parts of the world, or to go to a place that day. That would be influence of our spirit team and guide pulling us there. And when we do, we end up meeting something, or something falls together. That's how things unfold, right? And I remember with Jason, I wasn't supposed to go to the Arthur Findlay College at that time. I was supposed to go a few months later, the first time I went and I met him. And there was such a strong pull. I kept seeing the word September written everywhere, anywhere I went. And some people would talk about September, I'd hear September. Sure enough, I went, and that's where I met Jason. And this beautiful friendship and, working together has happened over the past 4 years because of it. And that is the influence of Spirit trying to bring that together as well. So Jason, is there any last words that you wanted to mention about the power, how people could develop it themselves, or any kind of spiritual practice that they can do, or anything else, last words that you wanted to mention?
Well, I think we've mentioned quite a lot of it. I'm just wondering if anyone's got a quick question before we finish. Listening to what Nicole said about how we got connected, listening to the guidance that brought us together. I mean, we both did. That's both what spirit brought through. We listened to, but then you've got that soul side of you. All right, so what does this mean? And that's what worked it out. I think when you go home, if you want to practice with your own guides, practice getting them closer, feeling them. How do they feel like? What are the sensations you feel? And experiment with them. And I think really mediumship is a lot to do with getting into the joy of mediumship and getting into that joy of your own soul. And being able to enjoy that experimentation and giving yourself a break and not giving yourself a headache, slogging yourself saying, I haven't got enough evidence and it's not good enough. Stop that, right? And get back into the joy of your mediumship and getting in touch with your guides. I am looking forward to coming in October to do a wonderful 3-day trance week workshop, plus other things that I'm going to be doing with Nicole in Vancouver Islands, Nanaimo area, but what is it? Eco Village? Shannigan Lake. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and it's amazing to be able to do that. And I just know that if it wasn't spirit orientated, I wouldn't be there. And I think that's a lot of thing to remember is like the things that you do in life. If it wasn't spirit orientated, you wouldn't be there. But you still got to make the choice to do it. You've still got to make the commitment to do it. And I always my grandfather always used to say this. Well, he didn't speak about the spirit world; he speak about God because he was a Catholic. We say God will always meet you with whatever dream you want to have, but you've got to meet God halfway. So your soul has to do some work as well, and I think that's a wonderful thing to stop with. I see Cindy's written something. Thank you for the session. She's from Alberta. First time joining this group. I look forward to the exciting connecting again in the next sessions. No, great. So I hope you've all enjoyed it. Cindy, welcome. Of course, we try to put these talks on as much as possible with limited time. Living in this world, you've got a limited time. And we try to put them as much as possible because there is so much out there that you can buy that isn't good quality. And I think, well, why can't you just share like questions and answers with people where people really need to hear the answer to? And it doesn't always have to cost, thousands of dollars, right? Sometimes it can just, be a gift from the heart. And I think that's why we do these things. And, I think that's the thing to remember. But if anyone's ever got any questions about their mediumship, about guides or anything like that, get in touch with Nicole Powell, get in touch with myself. And I look forward to seeing some of you in the future and maybe, in the far future. You never know what happens. You never know where spirit will take you if you listen.
Yeah. And I'll post the courses that Jason will be doing this fall on the Facebook page, because there is quite a bit that we have prepared for October and November. And I'll make sure I post that picture of the guides with their guides and their guides. So I want to thank everyone for showing up today, and those that I've met before, those that are new. It's really nice to see everyone here, and it's really enjoyable for us to hear what you actually want to hear about. So always feel free to post on my wall or whatever if you're wanting to hear more about a certain subject around mediumship, because we're always looking at what's inspired at the moment. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.
See you again next time.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone, I've put the Facebook, Nicole's Facebook on there.